Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth It Then, Worth It Now, an ongoing project idea here on this channel where I look at games of yesteryear, 10 plus years removed, more like 20 in this case, but I line it all up with the sale where possible, and today we're talking about Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 2007 edition, can you believe it? Now I'm a sucker for a good COD campaign or a Battlefield campaign from years past, especially around this era. It was not unusual for me and what I perceived as every other normie that I interacted with to pretty much get a COD game yearly or bi-yearly or however it worked out and just play the campaign. Enjoy your AAA 10, 12 hour bombastic cinema adjacent, right? There was a culture of that, which might even just shock younger people now. Don't get me wrong, there was popularity of things like online PvP and zombies came along at a certain point, but I still actually think a huge chunk were, like me, were not that interested in multiplayer. Don't get me wrong, I gave it a go and I actually played quite a bit of multiplayer on this one because it was kind of new, it was kind of novel. This was one of gaming's first real reimaginings or reboots, you know, because you'd had Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, widely regarded as excellent and trailblazers in their time, but even by the time you got to 3, which I played tons of that multiplayer on bloody Xbox Live or whatever, you know, people were starting to get a bit fatigued from it. So when you did this whole modern shake-up, and it's done so well, and it holds up so well. Like, it really did trailblaze so many subgenres and everything in modern gaming today. This was the real tip of the spear of an actual modern combat setting that stuck the landing. There'd been some other experiments, you know, ones that I'm very fond of, like Full Spectrum Warrior, right? But that still didn't get mainstream uptake. Not like this. Anyway, all of that is to say that this game was excellent when it came out and I loved it at the time, and I was very, very fond of enjoying my overpriced AAA bombastic experience single player campaign, right? Yes, I'm aware that they've done a reboot in the past couple of years of this, which I never played, and there was even, I've got it in my library, the remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it, which I guess was in 2017. And again, never really looked at that, but this, man, oh, the memories come flowing back. But the important thing is, yes, it's on sale. You can pick it up now. COD games don't usually go on very deep sale, and you know, they hold their price over time. There's a broader discussion to be had beyond the scope of this video. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, as much as people will rail against that. If you feel that you have a quality product and you can ask X dollars for it and not budge on it, then power to you. You should set the demands of the market, and that goes for everyone, not just COD games. You know, RimWorld went for years without ever going on sale because, you know, they recognize their self-worth. So yeah, it's on sale. It's probably about half price or something like that. Still relatively expensive in the scheme of things, but it's still worth it, man. I was musing to myself, I got up to, like, there's a point where you're doing a night fight protecting a tank that's kind of stuck and needs repairs and is getting overwhelmed, but you're like a QRF group that's come over to try and help them hold it down, and you're doing all the dynamic missions, and then they've got helos flying in, blasting up the enemy and shooting it all up, and yeah, alright, the graphics are older, you know, the textures, the resolutions are lower, and it's not bombastic in the explosions that you would probably expect these days, but you know, it was still cool watching the building get chipped apart by these choppers, and I just thought to myself, why aren't games getting made like this today? I reckon there's an entire market if people made a brand new indie game that still, because this still handles perfectly. It's tough as well. Your time to death, time to kill is hugely fast. Like, there's a section where you're in trying to hunt down the big bad in the broadcast area. It's like a news station, right? And the enemies just keep coming and your allies keep coming and they're throwing grenades and they're relentless, and it only takes like 2 or 3 hits before you die. And it was good. It was better than a lot of what you get as mediocre shooters today. And I just thought to myself, man, it feels good to play. The narrative and the voice acting and the musical score all tie it together really well. And even though it's limited by its old engine, the bombast, seeing the rolling seas over the oceans has aged out a bit. But I still think the creative direction and the cohesive package has high value. So much so, I really do think, if you're a budding young indie dev looking for something to do this. Make another Call of Duty-like game in an old engine. Make a 15-year-old throwback in the same way people do PS1 era graphics and people do pixel art, right? But don't use that as an excuse to be low quality. You get great voice acting, great writing, a really interesting narrative that's well told and easy to follow. All the transition cutscene things between, jumping between the main character's soap and then this other US Marine and having all the symbols jump up and the quick briefs. It's not overwhelming, right? It's not Adderall fueled overstimulation, but it's cool. It has a production quality that is timeless. And that's what I just sort of felt myself, as part of this experiment. I just feel like there is a niche market, and I would love to see it happen, where people make throwback games, potentially in old engines that everyone can run, but they bring AAA quality to the table. Anyway, I know I'm musing a little bit and putting my wishes out there in the ether, but that was one of my main takeaways. So yeah, I didn't have any real problems. I had like a recording software issue for some of it, but that's more a me problem. Generally speaking, it was happy to run at 4K. I dropped it to 2K, but it was fine there. I don't think I could change the sensitivity on my mouse, but I just made do. You get used to it, right? And it's not competitive. I'm just playing the campaign, so it worked in the end. But so much of the set pieces are just really clean and hold up well. There was a sequence where we're going through nighttime and then into these buildings, and then you switch on your night vision and you can see the little IR lasers, and it's a really fun. It's got its own little set pieces and canned animations of dudes. It's one of the first games, actually. Well, it is the first game that did this idea of jumping between different point of view protagonists, and statute of limitations on spoilers. Maybe the protagonists don't last all the way through to the end. Sometimes you have subversive movie elements where your main character kind of switches halfway through Act 2 or something like that because they get killed. When done well, that is excellent. And, this is where that sort of begun. The best example being in the beginning, after you do like the first opening missions, you jump across to the displaced president of this country, which is the spark that kicks off the whole game, basically getting executed on live TV. And you get to play through this, you could say walking sim if you want to be disparaging, but it puts walking sims to shame. They drag you into this shitbox car and all the details. Like I said, it's low res, it's dated graphics, that's fine, but it's in the detail, it's in the animations. The dude in the passenger seat keeps looking back at you and giving you the stink eye. He's trying to figure you out, and the way he's interacting with you makes you think there's a dude with cogs turning in his head. He's got, it's not just spelling it all out for you. This dude's got an idea of what's going on, and he's thinking. And, a game that's bloody 20 years old that looks like this, to still be able to convey these sort of emotes and thoughts for you is so cool. He's like talking to the bloke, he's on the phone, he's pointing in directions, giving directions to the driver and all that, and all this culminates with you going, this is how it begins, that big moment where old mate just blows your bloody face off. Wow, it's so good. One thing that really stuck out to me is the amount of aliens quotes. I reckon there were probably 3 that I could think of. There's Marines, we are leaving. I know there was like Stay Frosty in there. Someone pulled out a shotgun and said, I'd like to keep this for close encounters. It's like, okay, cool, we get it. That's, I feel like that doesn't age quite as well, but that's only because the market now compared to what it was then is so different. Now we have 1 billion games, and if they are ripping anything off or being derivative, you will catch it straight away. But at the time, safe to say they were still in a very tip of the spear place for the AAA industry, paving a way for games as a, let's say, cinematic experience. It probably didn't hurt that it was tying in your favorite quotes. You're probably sitting there going, oh my God, he said the thing from Aliens. Like a different time, a different state of industry. But even when you're escaping from the ship and jumping onto the helicopter in the opening, the music is so overtly taking off the Aliens finale music, the action music, with the high tempo symphony and the big hits, and oh, it's cool. I have a cheesy grin on my face talking about it, and I had a grin playing it, right? The boys clearly wore their inspiration on their sleeve. But yeah, it's outrageous how well this holds up. Like I said, I generally have been keeping pace with games that are around about 10 years old, and following that course, it's been a fun parallel doing this on this channel, seeing where we were at 10 years to the day or thereabouts. But, just for something different, I went back to like one of the oldest games in my library that was on sale, and it was this. And I'm just so rapt that it holds up so well to the point where maybe I'll just continue and play through the whole thing. What's that but another afternoon or something? Make some time on the weekend, and perhaps even then I'll follow up and play the remake and the remaster and the reimagining and just see how they all fare together. You can probably dig it out on this channel. I went back and played through COD 1 a couple of years ago, and same thing, I still recall being so blown away by how well it holds up. In that instance, it was a revelation that I hadn't actually played through all of COD 1. I must have watched some friends play the opening hours or something like that. This is a bit different. This I played the living crap out of, and I remember a lot of the story and that. And anyway, my point is that as time goes by and graphics, especially in the Western games industry, become so hyper-realism focused, it's such a bait and switch. This idea that pushing the technical, how many pores a person has on the face or their eyelash count actually matters. Granted, it looks great, right? And I enjoy seeing, that visual smorgasbord. But then there are games at that level that are released in current year that still cannot hold a candle to these games from a, cohesive gameplay experience, the whole package, the fun, the immersion, the music, every moving part, not to go too circular. They had the formula worked out 20 years ago, and it's starting to feel more and more like a generational loss of talent or something. You find it hard to believe that these civilizations in the past rise and fall, and you lose libraries of information, and then you live through something like this near and dear to you, because I obviously follow the games industry, and I go, no, I believe it now. I believe that over the course of 1 or 2 generations, you can lose an entire art form from not passing it along correctly. Anyway, waxing a little bit nostalgia and poetic, but such is the case with these videos. I just talk off the cuff about what comes to mind because of my experience with them. And I guess the main takeaway is the game's on sale. It still holds up. Dig it out of your library, boot it up. You'd be surprised. It holds up better than how you probably assume it would. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.